Hello and welcome. I'm Maria Ressa. This is Rappler Talk. In 2010, Leila de Lima was appointed Justice Secretary. In that 5-year stint, she saw the filing of cases against politicians over the misuse or the alleged misuse of the pork barrel. She also ordered the probe against Muslim rebels over the Mama Sapano tragedy. In August, she hit the spotlight again when Iglesia Ni Cristo members asked for her resignation after she decided to probe the illegal detention case filed against the INC leadership. Now, she is running for senator. Joining us today is outgoing Justice Secretary Leila de Lima to talk about her 5-year stint as the Justice Secretary, her plans in 2016, and overall, where are we in these elections in the Philippines? Thank you so much for joining us, Leila.
Hi, Maria. Thank you for having me.
My
and
gosh.
I'm already out as
You
Secretary
are
of
out.
Justice.
Yes,
so
yes,
not just
correct.
outgoing, so I'm out. I resigned effective October 12th.
So tell me, how would you assess what you were able to accomplish in the Department of Justice?
Oh my. Okay, it's something that went beyond my expectations and my imagination. Well, I'm used to a lot of challenges when I was the chair of the CHR, the Commission on Human Rights.
I certainly remember.
But in terms of the work volume and in terms of all the issues and controversies that I confronted, I think it's 100 times more. The stress was 100 times more than when I was with the CHR, because it's a whole range of issues. Because I was not only tending to the DOJ proper, which is the National Prosecution Service, the prosecutors all over the country, but also I had 10 attached agencies. These are these are major agencies like the Bucor, the NBI, the BI, PAO, etc. So it's been both exciting and exasperating.
You were, as CHR, really holding the government accountable, and then you switched sides completely in this one. Then you were in charge of doing it.
But I never really considered it as a totally different endeavor.
It's the same.
Yes, it was just really a continuation of what I've been fighting for and what I have been representing, what I've been promoting, because I always see justice and human rights as standing together, as going side by side. No, we cannot talk about justice without human rights, and human rights without justice. It's got to be always both. Forget about attaining justice if you don't respect human rights.
And what lessons did you learn?
Well, that you cannot really satisfy everyone.
Yeah, that's
I knew
absolutely
that
true.
all along.
Anyone who's a leader gets that, right? Yeah.
I knew that all along, but I really experienced it firsthand. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, you satisfy, and there are things that you do that benefit certain sectors that would excite and that would make certain sectors happy, but at the expense of being being pilloried by other sectors.
Right.
You know.
And in terms of how you leave behind DOJ, what would you say were the accomplishments, and where could you have done better?
Well, in terms of accomplishments, I would categorize them into internal and external.
Please.
So internal to DOJ, we have instituted certain reforms like the code of conduct for our prosecutors, the establishment of the internal affairs unit that handle the administrative complaints, because I received a number of complaints against erring prosecutors. I even authorized personally the setting up of certain prosecutors. They were because these prosecutors were demanding money, were extorting money from complainants. So I had to order their arrest. Some of the.
So you were cleaning up as you were trying to move forward.
Yes, and I just remembered. I keep forgetting this actually, that in my early months as Secretary of Justice, I did away with filing fees, because I thought that why should we impose filing fees? Why should victims of crimes be made to pay before they can seek redress? Because when I got in DOJ was imposing or was collecting filing fees from the complainants.
Yes, that's right.
So I did away with that, for access to justice.
Fantastic. Of course, one of the most controversial decisions. You did also run after high profile, the big fish.
Yeah, these are the external
Oh, sorry. So
accomplishments.
internal. You were let's finish internal and then go to external because I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
The internal accomplishments. We actually also strengthen the selection and promotion board,
Right.
so that meritocracy is the only standard in terms of hiring and
This is also
promoting.
familiar, professionalizing a bureaucracy, right? How far along did you get in that?
Well, I'd like to say that we have not really achieved that much. Although I actually imposed I encourage or discourage actually endorsements from politicians when it comes to promotions of our prosecutors. But even with that policy, there were still politicians who would try to endorse for promotion certain prosecutors. And I have actually institutionalized. There was some paradigm shift in terms of the role of the prosecutors.
Okay.
I gradually involved them as early as case buildup, and that's why I made them members or even the lead persons of our various task forces that we created.
That makes sense because they're the ones who will have to
Yes,
present the
it
case in
used
court.
to be that only police investigators like NBI and the
Right.
policemen who would really be involved directly
Right.
in evidence gathering and case buildup.
Right.
And our prosecutors would tend to think and act like they are just judges, meaning that they would just wait for complainants to file cases, and then they would assess the evidence on the basis of the strength of the evidence for the complainant and for the respondents. Now, when cases are filed in court, they also just act as prosecutors without close coordination with the investigators who did the case buildup. So what is the result? High rate of dismissal.
Correct.
So when I came in, I involved prosecutors in the case buildup because it is the prosecutors who would know
Right.
whether
What they
the
need.
evidence are admissible, whether the evidence are strong enough to pass the probable cause threshold into preliminary investigation, and more importantly at the trial stage,
Right.
which is proof beyond reasonable doubt. So what happens now to the preliminary investigation? Now I see to it that those prosecutors who were involved in the evidence gathering stage are not the ones handling the preliminary investigation, who would need to really
Have a
evaluate
whether there is.
objectively
Correct.
the evidence for the complainant and the respondents.
That's
So
good.
and I would want to really institutionalize that system through the criminal investigation bill that we have already submitted to Congress. It's still pending, and I doubt whether it will see the light of day this Congress.
Interesting. Let's talk about the public. Of course, again, you came in at a very, the balance of power was shifting, right? From the very beginning, starting with Gloria Arroyo, going all the way to
Yeah.
the pork barrel fund.
Yeah, in terms of external accomplishments or external reforms, that one is more challenging. It's tougher because from as early as a month after I was installed as the DOJ secretary, I immediately handled that. Remember the August 23, 2010 Luneta hostage taking
Of
incident?
course, I was head of
ABS
News.
I was the
of
chair
course. Yes,
of the
yes.
Incident Investigation Review Committee
Yes.
of that.
Yes.
Where 8 Chinese nationals
Kill.
were killed because the rescue was bungled by the Philippine police.
Right.
So that was the very first major thing that I attended to,
Yeah.
and that was followed by several more major.
No, you went right into the fire.
Events. Yes, the when I prevented the former president from leaving, and I was accused of defying the Supreme Court's TRO.
Right.
There was no defiance, because at the time that the former president attempted to leave, there was yet no official copy received by the DOJ. So no TRO to speak of, no
Right.
TRO to defy.
Right.
You know, and BDAF,
Yes.
and then the Atimonan,
Yes, Atimonan, the police. Yeah,
ambush,
yeah.
the and the Mama
Sapano.
Sapano,
Yeah.
and then Iglesia ni Cristo. So these are major things that I confronted, and which some people say made me controversial. But I keep saying I never asked to be controversial. It's not my fault that these things happen. It's not my fault that these fall within my mandate, and I'm one who would really take things very seriously. When I take in assignments, especially from the president, I really take them very seriously.
You're not afraid of making enemies.
I never consider anyone my enemy. Because
Many consider you their enemy.
maybe some of them would consider me as my enemy. That it's just a matter of knowing me better. Because if they really know me, that would not be their perception of me.
You're key. I mean, in many ways, you overturned the status quo in many of these things, right? I mean, I guess, and that's where I was going with the enemies. By overturning the status quo, you displease, you create chaos in the status quo. I mean, how does that make you feel? Where did you find the courage to actually stand up to?
Well, in the first place, it's the one we need. Philippine society, Philippine governance. You know, enough of status quo. There's got to be really major changes in our system. So disturbing the status quo is probably, well, subconsciously that was part of my mission. My mission was actually to deliver true and complete justice for all. That much was explicitly stated by the president during his inaugural address in June 30 of 2010. That was my marching order.
Yeah.
So when you deliver true and complete justice for all,
Yeah.
you've got to do it without fear or favor. So you know when you displease some personalities, then that comes with the territory.
You held power. That's tremendous power. What is it like?
I never consider my DOJ post as power, but more of responsibility, more of a mission, not power at all. Yeah, people keep telling me that from day one. Oh, you know, because of the vastness of the broadness of your mandate.
Correct.
And as I said, I had many. DOJ has I think the most number of attached
Yes.
agencies, and then the core mandate is investigation and prosecution. And that is really the meat of the justice, the delivery of justice mission. So I never consider, not even subconsciously, as power.
And how would you gauge, how would you assess the state of justice in our country today?
Well, there have been gains, there have been headways, but still a lot of challenges, particularly on the matter of speeding up
Trials.
justice. You know,
Right.
it's still the wheels of justice still grind so exceedingly slow. But there are certain steps, certain measures that have been introduced by the judiciary, particularly the Supreme Court, like the continuous trial. They have intensified, or they have actually revived the continuous trial system. There are pilot areas where it's ongoing, and it entails really the close collaboration and cooperation between the judges and the prosecutors and the investigators, the police, because
Yeah.
most of these criminal cases, you know, these are filed by the police investigators. And it used to be that there were occasions when, or a lot of occasions, when the police investigators would not even appear, so that delays the whole process. So
Right.
speeding up, how to speed it up? There are still major cases around,
Right.
like the Maguindanao massacre,
Right.
and that's one of the things that I left. I wished I had accomplished
Yeah.
before I left, because that was part of my commitment, not only to the president, but to the public.
Right.
The convictions, at least to achieve convictions.
This was brazen and blatant, and what do you tell the public in terms of why there's no resolution?
Well, we are very confident that certain convictions would be achieved before or in time for the exit of the Pinoy administration. Now, what accounts for the delay? There are just too many victims or complainants, there's just too many accused, and therefore too many lawyers. And then and some of these defense lawyers are highly paid lawyers, so their function in life is just to really delay the whole process. But we are blessed with the fact that the handling judge, although she's very, very cautious, she's a very cautious type of a judge, which more or less also contributes to the delay. But I'm not at all faulting this judge.
Right.
But we're blessed with the fact that because of her cautiousness, the rulings have been so fair and so correct so far with respect to the denial of the bail applications of some of the accused.
Right.
And we see her as uncompromising. She's a clean judge.
Wonderful, wonderful. You're jumping into politics. I'm going to jump right into it. Why move from justice to politics?
I keep asking myself that also, because again, just like what happened to me when I became CHR, chairperson and DOJ, this is something that is not really planned. I never planned for this. And my father even counseled me against it, against joining politics before he died 3 years ago. That was one of the few billions.
Oh, wow.
Mga billing
Yeah.
sa akin ng daddy before he died. I still remember his words. Sabi niya, okay, if you still want to be of service to the country after your DOJ stint, please do so. But if you can avoid politics, please avoid politics. He's worried about me, he's worried about, being very exposed. And you know how certain people can be so cruel,
Yeah.
going beyond what is civil, what is professional, going beyond what is fair, and all that, the mudslinging
Yes.
and everything. But, well, that's what he said, if you can avoid politics. And therefore, up until a few weeks ago, I never really thought that I would be filing my COC.
Right.
I was debating with myself whether or not to proceed. But I was thinking, since 6 years is really too short.
Not enough. Actually, yeah.
Not enough for any lasting.
It's just the beginning.
Yes.
I spent 6 years with ABS and trying to do structural reforms are
Yes.
insane.
Yes, institutional structural reforms, because personalities or heads of offices come and go. Like, presidents come and go.
Right.
Alter egos of the president come and go.
Is there enough of a bureaucracy to keep it moving forward? Is what you leave behind enough to keep going the same
By
path?
and large, there have been really good things introduced into the bureaucracy. Now, especially under this administration, where accountability, transparency are top, are priorities. But there's more,
Right.
I guess, to be done. And going back to my why I'm joining.
I was going to say, so why? What
Why?
made you change your mind to join politics?
Again, to just continue my advocacies. Because, as CHR,
Yes.
I was more of an advocate, just criticizing and condemning human rights violations without much teeth, because CHR is really a toothless tiger.
Right.
Until now, no real powers to hold human rights violators accountable. Now, as part of the executive DOJ, executive, yes, we enforce the laws. Now, as both CHR chair and DOJ secretary, I've seen the ills, I've seen some of the gaps, the deficiencies
Yes.
in the system, in the justice system, and therefore I would now want to take a look at the legislative
Agenda.
agenda. I would now want to contribute what I think is needed or are needed to further make justice accessible to the poor, to the marginalized, to be felt by them. Justisya naramdam ni Juan and Juana, and of course to punish the guilty faster and to free the innocents also faster.
How interesting. If you win for senator, you would have gone from the advocate for human rights to the person who had to deal with the entire system that
Exactly.
determined justice, and now
Yes.
to somebody who would be making laws.
Yes.
That's. It seems like it's going from someone who has tremendous power, like you say, it's responsibility, but yet has tremendous power over justice, to somebody then who would have to look at the system and then would create laws but have no real power in implementing the system.
Yes, yes. Well, because first thing that I need to do really, and although we've started doing it with our criminal code committee, and we have actually made an inventory of all the laws, because there are a lot of overlapping laws,
Yes.
useless laws
Yes, that aren't implemented.
that are not implemented, good in paper, but difficult to implement. Complicated laws. There are laws that are really complex.
Right.
Why not make all those laws simpler?
Interesting.
If laws are much simpler, then it's easier to enforce them
Yeah. And easier for people to understand.
and
also,
easier
right?
for people to understand.
There are so many questions that have come in, so let me throw. Guys, if you're on Twitter, her handle is @attorney Leila. Leila, right? Because people say Leila, Leila. It's Leila, attorney Leila. From Limerick File 11. Actually, Bulastog, you were one of the first ones to send in a question, so let's throw it in. Mrs. De Lima, will you investigate LP allies? Tough question. Will you investigate LP allies in the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee regarding PDAF and DAP if you won?
Again, without fear or favor, I will fulfill also my mandate if blessed with a sovereign mandate and be part of the Senate, then I will fulfill my mandate as member of the Senate, again without fear or favor.
There's some impression in the filing of the PDAF cases that LP allies were shielded.
That's not a fair assessment, because you see, when we investigated all that, when we reviewed the special audit report of the COA, where we based our investigations, then we never bothered to distinguish between allies and opposition. It's not our fault that there are more so-called opposition members in the list
Right.
than those the so-called allies. And in the 3 batches that we forwarded to the ombudsman, there were a few allies, but it's never a consideration.
Interesting. Well, at Kian Santiagos seems to really believe what you say. He says on Twitter, at Kian71, if I only choose one of the senatorial candidates, only you, Secretary De Lima. Ang pipiliin ko, you're one of a kind.
Oh, maraming salamat.
Thanks, Kian. From at Dark Charlotte, sino sa tingin mo ang hindi karapat-dapat tumakbo na pagka-presidente?
ang nag-file po, well, napakadami hong nag-file, di ho ba? More than
137 at the last count, I think, right?
137. I'm sure there are really nuisance candidates there, and let the COMELEC clean up that list. But the more serious ones, well, I wouldn't want to say who kung sino ang hindi karapat-dapat. Among the serious ones is up to the electorate.
It's interesting watching politics this time around. Let's talk about that. I mean, how would you assess Philippine politics at this point in time?
I'd like to say that it's not yet really that mature, but there has been really a lot of significant changes. One of that changes, and we are going to see that really in next year's elections, is the role of social media.
Yes.
Because the role of social media has been there in terms of the everyday issues of national importance.
Right.
Social media is also active in the showbiz world,
Aldub. Right?
i.e. Aldo.
Yes, hashtag Aldub.
And now, especially in politics,
Yes.
I think every serious candidate now would have really a particular unit, solely devoted to social media, how to advance the agenda of a candidate by reaching out to the netizens. Netizens have a very crucial role nowadays, and netizens should be made to be more aware, more conscious about issues,
Yes.
rather than, I would not want to say rather than personalities, because I do believe, Maria, that personalities and issues can go together,
I hope so.
can
Yeah.
be utilized to really project
Yes.
one's worth
How will you
as a candidate.
How will you balance social media, the good and the bad of it? I mean, you talked about the negatives of politics. Obviously, we've seen social media be used for black operations campaigns. And the wisdom of the crowd, I say this all the time, can turn into a lynch mob like this. How will you balance this now as a candidate?
Well, I guess it's just really a matter of convincing more and more people of the worthiness of your candidacy. Because if more and more people would believe in you as someone who can really be trusted to run the country, for the highest post, and then the senatorial, trusted to do a very meaningful legislative reforms, then that would amount to the depletion of the bashers.
Right.
No, there
Right.
would be less and less bashers and more likers and more supporters. So it's just really a matter, because, well, we cannot do away with those. If people do not want you, they do not want you. But there are, I'd like to say that even among the bashers,
Yes.
there are still convertibles.
Interesting. The 40%, I mean, the estimates of Comelec now is about 40% of the voters in these elections will be young.
Again, that's very good. That's very good, particularly to political neophytes like me, to newcomers like me. I'm one of the political newbies.
Yes.
And the young people tend to really gravitate also to new faces, to fresh personalities. And because they have had enough of the oldies, they have had enough of the trapos, so they would want to try out new faces. I'd like to think I'm one of them, and therefore I'd like to think that from the young voter population, I would be able to convince many of them.
Fantastic. Well, an extension at Hope Deity is asking, why did you run for senator? But the extension of that is, what do you have to offer the youth?
Well, you see, the youth can be persuaded to really espouse for a lot of issues
Yes.
in society, beginning with anti-corruption particularly,
Yes.
then justice and the rule of law, and even human rights. These are the three broad or general areas that I'm particularly very, very interested, because that's where my exposure has been. Now, especially anti-corruption.
Yes. Well, on the hashtags that we've been watching since Rappler began in 2012, cybercrime law was the first one to really get people motivated. And of course, in August 2013, we had hashtag Million People March, the anti-corruption, the first time one Facebook post got nearly 120,000 or 100,000 people out in Luneta Park.
Yeah, that's one of my top advocacies, really. Panibagong opensiba
Interesting.
laban sa korupsyon. A new offensive, because we started it already.
Yes.
Correct? With all of these cases. Now with the ombudsman and the Sandigan Bayan, and you see, to the great credit of our current ombudsman, never have we seen many
Yes.
cases filed with the Sandigan Bayan ever since the office of the ombudsman was created under the under the new constitution. So we have started it already, the PDAF and all the initiatives of this administration against corruption. But what do we need
Next.
What do we need next?
Yes.
It's
yes.
a new offensive. And when I say new offensive, I'd like to take a very close look at the existing legal procedures and legal mechanisms on hidden wealth. How to make it more difficult for the plunderers to use and hide or conceal their ill-gotten wealth. That's what we lack. We have the forfeiture law.
Yes.
We have AMLAC.
Yes.
But how come it's so difficult to freeze? There have been certain cases where there have been freezing of assets,
Right.
like the Binay assets,
right.
like the Estrada and Revilla assets.
Right.
But what about the others?
Well, the banking secrecy laws, I think the Philippines is one of the few countries in the world that still has such strict ones that protect them. Well, anyway,
We can have a close review
yeah.
of the bank secrecy
There's so much
law.
more.
How to balance, because that would, we cannot be too liberal, because
Yes.
that would be bad for the
For
industry,
business and for
the
economics.
banking industry,
Yes.
and business and economy as a whole. But how to balance it as an really effective tool against corruption.
Excellent. Questions from Facebook from Kindred Akin Athens. In your opinion, does our judiciary have credibility and integrity for the Filipino people?
Yes and no. Well, because I do believe that just like any major or crucial institutions, it really depends on who are in that,
Sitting there, right?
who are sitting there.
And
So
that's why it
if
makes
you have
sense.
a CJ, a Chief Justice, well, Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno is really making a mark.
Yes.
She
And you
is-
were one
she
of the
is
three
very
furies.
proactive.
Yes.
She is very proactive, very dynamic in terms of putting in procedural reforms within the judiciary.
And using technology. I mean, she was one of our
Especially
speakers for that.
technology.
I'm going to throw, I think, the last question, which is really interesting from Facebook. How do you define transformative leadership? This is from John Kicks Bagano. Great question. How do you define transformative leadership? How do you think you can be one?
Well, transformative leadership is employing new ideas in terms of propping up excellence in governance, and I should be able to contribute. Again, when I join the Senate through very meaningful legislative reforms, particularly in the three areas that I mentioned: justice and rule of law, anti-corruption, and human rights.
Leadership in this country demands more, I think, than it would in a country where institutions are stronger. In some of the Western countries, I mean, what are some of the things that a leader in this country needs to have that you've seen or that surprised you?
Always political will. Political will is number one in terms of putting in really lasting reforms, in terms of making tough decisions whenever it's needed to do, tough decisions when confronted with very major issues and very major incidents.
Fantastic. Your last thoughts. I know I've kept you for a while, and you guys can keep sending the questions. She's at Attorney Leila, and you can use hashtag Rappler Talk. But please, your last thoughts before you, my gosh, jump into the fray.
Well, I'm just praying and hoping, Maria, that those who are running, everyone, and their respective supporters would just really respect the electoral system, that that this should not be running for any elective post should not be considered as just a forum or an avenue to lambast and to to criticize and to demean other candidates. That's part of respecting the whole process. Everyone should be professional. Everyone should just be talking about issues, but talking about merits of their respective candidacies, and not resort to mudslinging.
Do you think that Filipino voters, our society's mature enough to punish those who do that?
I'd like to think so. I'd like to think so. And again, the role of the netizens and the young people and the professionals, the business leaders would be very, very crucial.
You've weathered a lot as Secretary of Justice in this country. I mean, it sounds though that you're slightly worried about going into the fray of politics. Is your skin thick enough?
Yes, it's the very concern of my father. Well, I just have to really be strong, as always.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We've been speaking to former Justice Secretary Leila de Lima. Justice, elections, corruption, human rights, keep track of it. You can continue the conversation with her online at Attorney Leila. I'm Maria Ressa. Thank you for watching.